So, welcome back to Everything Marketplaces, where we talk with founders and leaders from some of today's top marketplaces. So, this is episode 89, which is a really great group chat that we just had with Benjamin Rubenstein, who leads expansion and ops at Snackpass. So, Snackpass is a platform that allows users to order ahead at their favorite restaurants and unlock discounts with friends. They've raised over 90 million from top investors like Kraft Ventures, Anderson Horowitz, General Catalyst, and more. So prior to Snackpass, Benjamin led regional ops and marketing at Lime, so some really great marketplace experience. So this is really a great chat with Benjamin, where we got to learn more about his previous experience at Lime during a period of incredible growth. Now at Snackpass, some unique insights into it as a marketplace, and also had a great Q&A for those on the chat. So really enjoyed this conversation, and know you're going to find it a great watch to the end. So Benjamin, welcome to the group chat, and it's definitely great to have you join us here today. So, you have some really incredible experience at Lime and now Snackpass, which comes up quite frequently in the community. So I'm really excited to learn more about it and dive into things with you. Before we do, though, I think it might be great if you can start off by sharing a little bit more on your background for those that don't know you, and then, what led you to joining Lime.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Great to connect and such an awesome platform. So yeah, my journey to join Lime, I think really comes down to my desire to grow and learn at the fastest and highest level. I think about like density of learning and where can I find the highest density of learning, and it's to put myself in the most challenging and complex situation. So when I decided to join Lime, I before that I was actually like in like sports industry, working for like Under Armour and the Wizards, and I found myself just not being pushed to my personal potential. And that's when I decided to make the jump to join Lime and their like New York ops and marketing team. When they were about 200 people, they were really just a bike company at that point. So they had pedal bikes, electric assist bikes, and they just started with scooters. And when I was there, I was doing everything from launching new markets all throughout the East Coast, from Florida, Massachusetts, in New York, to writing proposals to pitch new cities. I'd meet with the Port Authority, to the city mayor, to the state governor, building marketing campaigns and running events for new scooter launches and new market launches, and doing real estate partnerships so we could park scooters in private areas where the public wouldn't allow us yet. So it was really like everything it took to launch new markets. And then eventually I moved out to San Francisco with Lime, where it definitely was the place to be. And I transitioned to really focusing on helping local ops managers all around the world like activate and build like partnerships with local governments, local brands, local distributors to really launch their market from the ground up. So I worked with over 100 operations managers, especially in like the priority markets at the time, which was like Paris and LA and Berlin, Tel Aviv, to really launch those. So it was from doing like safety events where we'd ensure every new market had a series where people would go through like obstacle courses to ensure like we showed our commitment to helping people ride scooters, and also running like local ambassador programs where we partner with really impactful founders who are doing a lot of good for the community, and we'd run events with them highlighting what they were doing. So, we grew about 10x during my time there, from about 200 to 800 people in team size, and launched 4 or 5 scooters, and raised over $1 billion. So it was definitely a whirlwind of building.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like some, pretty incredible experience there. So maybe what were some like the biggest challenges, during your time there?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenges was keeping up with the scale, because we were at the point where we were just launching. We would be just sending these scooters to random cities all around the world, and they'd get there, and it was this balance of, do we have a team to deploy, or there'd be scenarios where we'd sign a deal with a city, a municipality, and we didn't have any scooters to launch with. So it was a balance. And I think a big challenge was understanding the decision makers. I think if you reference people in the early tech scooter days, were like, oh my God, they're just launching rogue scooters in all these random cities, and it's disrupting the way of life. But the reality is it's like the competition is the status quo for how these cities were built. So it's going to be disruptive. And there was never a time where there were rogue scooter launches. You'd always like do early on, you do a deal with a local politician, but then you didn't understand the political influence of different decision makers. So it was really about, as like Lime and these scooter companies scaled, understanding all the buy-in needed rather than just like certain buy-in, which was initially there.
Yeah, certainly a great point. I'd love to go a little bit deeper and maybe learn a little bit more about what went into launching like a new market with maybe a specific example.
Yeah, definitely. I think community first approach. So Hoboken, it's not, they actually don't have scooters there anymore, but it was a market that was very, very divisive in the first market to have scooters, like the tri-state area. So it came down to initially a lot of local events that we do with the community. So we'd run these safety events, we'd run events in the local like Boys and Girls Club, the community centers, to really like work with the community. We introduced a program that it was like $5 for the year to ride scooters. If like depending on certain levels of like income to ensure that anyone could ride the scooters. So I think it really being as based in the community as possible and just having like the buy-in. And I think a big piece is just having the mental state of the reaction that people would have, because wherever I would go, people would like yell at me for these scooters disrupting their roads, or they had a friend who got hurt riding a scooter. And I think people have this mentality of not understanding what cars do to your everyday life, where everyone here has been in a car accident. Hopefully not, honestly, but people have been in many car accidents. Cars are taking up public space. If you think of any parked car, that's taking up space. So people see one scooter on the sidewalk, they flip out. So I think it's like a big mental shift. And the biggest challenge was getting that buy-in by doing a lot of community initiatives, both with local nonprofits, with the government, and also just with local residents.
Yeah, that's a really great example. And we actually had a note here in that chat from Rebecca, who's building a transportation marketplace about that.
I love that.
Yeah, cool. We'll make sure we call on her during the Q&A so she can come on. So during that time period, I guess what were some like the biggest learnings as far as from like a marketing and kind of ops side as a marketplace? I guess we could say that you've then taken with you to now Snackpass.
Definitely. I think one of the biggest things is competing together versus individualized. When you're building a scaled marketplace, you have 100 people all around the world building not the exact same program, but the same vision. So everyone's out there trying to build and to get more rides, or in Snackpass' case, like drive more sales and drive more revenue. But the mentality of this individualized competition is very toxic in a work environment. I think as you're scaling a business in hyper speed, there can be situations where people are competing amongst each other. I think a certain level of competition, like regardless, is healthy, but mentality of like being together and going after the status quo and of changing how people act as a way of life. Lime's case, how people move around the city. Snackpass's case, like how people interact with any restaurant or any ordering experience, even with their friends. So I think it's really that competing together mentality. And I think another big one is like problem solving at the core, rather than just like voicing problems, especially in like a very decentralized market. People are very prone to just like bring up what's wrong. And it could sound even cliche, but you think about like any problem solving that goes on, it's mainly like people just voicing problems, and then there's a few people who are actually the ones trying to figure out how to solve them. So everyone with the same mentality of solving their own problems, even proposing them, can be huge with such a decentralized space.
Yeah, those are really great points. I guess to expand on that a little bit more, how would you suggest teams think about building that kind of culture and that mentality of like the together and driving change for good versus kind of competing and the potential problems?
Yeah, I think being very objective is extremely important. Like you're building a business, and credit has to be thrown out. Like if I do anything that's a value, whenever I do anything that's a value add, like the last thing I want is me being called out as leading this initiative to launch a new market or to lead the go-to-market for a new product. It's like I don't care. because what I do care about, the business is succeeding because of that. So I think having a very objective approach to decision making is extremely important, and getting like the personal nature of one's idea over another is a big piece, because like you have situations where, like in Snackpass case, you're trying to sell a restaurant and there might be one situation that is good for this one restaurant, but is that going to be scalable to hundreds of thousands of restaurants around the country? But if that one person goes after that one mindset, we're going to be creating a system of broken strategy and broken execution. So I think it's really about like coming at it from an objective standpoint is it can be huge.
Yeah. So that's a great transition into Snackpass. So what led you to joining the Snackpass team?
Yeah, I think like my desire to density of learning is what I always come down to. I want to be in my dream environment to learn and grow. And when joining Snackpass, it was, okay, do I want to join like an already established startup that had been building, or do I just want to build from the ground up? Like that's what got me just super excited about like solving a problem that everyday people face regarding like how they're ordering food, how they're interacting with restaurants, and how they're connecting with their friends is so deep to me. And I just want to build and have the business and the product be the result, rather than myself, having my experience tied to like a brand name. Like that's something like, why not build a business, and like that the brand piece of like the name will come after. So, and of course, the team at that stage was only like 10 to 15 people 2 years ago, and it was just like in hyper growth mode. Right, it was right before COVID when I joined, so it was just really like the environment. I just wanted to push myself, and I knew it was going to be the biggest challenge I faced, but that's why I was so excited about it, and it was going to be the right decision.
Yeah. So you mentioned the team was about 10 people when you first joined.
Yeah, about 10 to 15. From like a couple engineers to people on like ops, marketing, expansion, and then the founders. So it was very small then, and now we're over 100. So it's a much different scale, but I think like keeping those same principles of being objective, competing together, and really just being like satisfaction free can really help like when scaling. But yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so definitely, definitely want to jump into some of the specifics of it. But maybe before we do, could you give us kind of like a high level overview of Snackpass for those that might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, for sure. So Snackpass is social ordering for restaurants. So we combine like technology with our marketplace mobile app, which was our first product, which we launched at least college campuses. And what we placed on top of just the marketplace app is the social features. So, every order you're interacting with a friend, you're sending them points. You can order with friends. You can go on, you can see a feed of who's ordering what, who's sending points to who. So you think of like your word of mouth interactions of like where you eat and why you eat and what you like, and you're digitizing that on a platform. So we're the only social e-commerce platform in the country, and we built layers on top, like different gamification methods with characters that really create this social connection with each other. And it's really good for restaurants, because restaurants get organic marketing with every single order. They're broadcasting it within Snackpass to their friends. So we built that mobile app, and since then we've built other technologies. So we built a self-service kiosk that really helps all the in-store orders for restaurants. And we built online ordering, QR code ordering, a lot of these pieces that we built during the pandemic to really help these restaurants and be, we really thought about like, how can we have these restaurants survive? That's the most important thing for us. So we started just on college campuses around the country, and Yale was the first campus, UC Berkeley, U Michigan, Penn State, Brown. And then now with our added products, we're launching in cities all around the country. So New York, LA, San Francisco. You'll start to see a bunch of restaurants near you that are using Snackpass, and if you download our app, you can certainly see where we're at.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for giving us kind of a breakdown. So you mentioned when you kind of joined like earlier on, right, with like a smaller team, kind of on college campuses. So what was that like initial kind of use case of like who Snackpass was for then and that product experience, and how has that maybe changed as you've kind of scaled to new markets and maybe even outside of campuses?
Definitely, definitely. I think the mindset of the consumer wanting to connect with each other about food actually like goes regardless of age and demographic. Whether you're 90 years old, you're going to still talk about your favorite bakery than when you're 20. But what we found is students especially are love to connect on technology as well, and we really wanted to figure out a way that they could send food to each other, let their friends know what they're ordering, when they're ordering, who they're interacting with. So I think the student and Gen Z, we were built like by and for Gen Z initially as the target market was so critical because they're we're a social media platform on itself, but very organic, and everyone involved is like an active customer for these restaurants. So these restaurants see the Snackpass users as much big value adds than someone just like coming in their restaurant, because they know that they're a marketing agent for that restaurant. So, and as we've expanded, I think it's the students are very exciting, but they're young professionals and other like professionals that are very very focused on eating, working, living in like certain environments are super great. So now, we're launching in these cities, and we really want to find areas that people are still have that sense of community. It's all about that sense of community. So like, I think that goes, and it started with us at colleges, but it continues in cities as well.
Yeah, certainly. And, definitely sounds like college campuses are a great kind of starting point. So on that note, like what all goes into launching like a new market? And, I'm also assuming there's some kind of like user to user network effect, that kind of, kicks in sooner than later. So, how are you thinking about those new market launches and kind of jumpstarting that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, users are ordering many more times as much if they're on our app versus if they're just ordering in a store. And we're going after cities, and it's. I think it's the mindset is we want to find the right restaurants and restaurant partners that are like all bought in the Snack Pass. Like we want to. So it's way more about quality than quantity from our standpoint. We don't want to just like launch 100 markets and have thousands of restaurants in every market that are not like all bought in on Snackpass. So I think it's super important for us to find like the right partners of restaurant types. And if you see our app, we got a lot of like boba tea and deli that like restaurants like very high frequency. So I think we really want to find like restaurants that are all bought in and like areas that people are walking around a lot. Their whole life is in that like one area within these cities. So I think it's a balance of finding the right areas and the right types of restaurants.
Yeah, and then so how are you actually like acquiring users or marketing to users like in those cities? Say you're gonna like launch in LA, right? Like what would that kind of like look like as you kind of prep to launch?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's a balance where actually in these cities we already have six figures of users who have graduated from these campuses and are in our app in these new cities. But I think it's like a mindset is now we're more than just like we have the kiosk in store as well. So we're grabbing customers in all different areas, and we're not completely 100% like reliant in brand new cities to spend millions and millions of dollars on like user acquisition only. So I think it's a balance and tapping into the social networks within each restaurant, because people want to share that they're connecting and they've been ordering at this restaurant, but it's also like now we have more products, so it's we're more involved in the restaurant and in their customer set as well than just the customers that are like inside of the Snackpass platform initially.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So I guess, on that note, so I'm really interested to learn more as far as, on the restaurant side, what's that kind of like value prop to the restaurant like in that sales process? And then, specifically, what's like the integration point when it comes to like the technology within their existing kind of, software stack maybe? that they use?
Definitely. No. Great question. So I think like some of the key things are like connecting the social feature is going to be our biggest differentiator, because you can have regard any tech platform out there, whether it's a point of sale, whether it's a marketplace app, and the social layer isn't there. So that's huge. I think like data is something that's very valuable, really giving restaurants the ability of like of who's coming in the door, and like what are they ordering, and like what are their friends ordering, how are their friends being involved with their restaurant. So I think it's really like empowering them, like with data and like what's actually happening inside and outside of their restaurant. And I think like it's a status quo thing as well, where some of these restaurants have a flow where you're ordering at one end, you pick up a ticket, you give it to like a register, they make your order. So it's really like streamlining like their operations for on and off premise, where if you order ahead, you skip the line, you go to the pickup counter, you grab your food, where if you're inside, you're going to just quickly order the kiosk. So I think it's like really trying to work with these restaurants, and it's been extremely challenging, but very, very successful of like how they see the ability for ordering ahead. Because initially it was just delivery. Like you would only past 10 years ago, it was just delivery ordering ahead. But as you might know, delivery is less than 10% of the restaurant's total revenue. So it's a very small piece. So the takeout aspect is something that's really untapped. And I think like that transition of really focusing with both an on-premise in-store and off-premise, like on an app, streamlining that operation is a real game changer for these restaurants.
Yeah, certainly sounds like a incredibly compelling value prop there. I actually wasn't aware of how big the takeout market was until I was doing some research prior to this chat. So
yeah, no, it's crazy.
yeah, so are there any I would say like specific challenges maybe that you've seen as far as like within the industry that you operate in, more recently?
Definitely. I think the biggest piece is what you're focused on as a business. Like who are you focused on? Like for us, we're a restaurant focused business. Like if we are building everything for the restaurant, that's where we succeed. Like all the social features is yes, we're a B2B2C. So we have an amazing relationship with our consumers. We have ambassador programs with students and non-students all around the country. But if it's not helping the restaurants like generate incremental orders and streamlining their operations, it's secondary. So I think like the industry is very complicated right now, where restaurants might deal with 5 different type of companies, whether it's delivery apps and like point of sale. So I think we really just want to simplify it for the restaurants long term. So back in the day, it was just cash, and that was their entire operation. People would come in, you couldn't call ahead, you just go in, and that's the only way you order. So I think it's simplifying it like that for the digital era is what we're really trying to solve. And I think we're alone in trying to bring all the different pieces together.
Yeah, certainly sounds like you're a leader in the space, though. That's for sure. So you did mention that you're a team of around 100. So now, and it does sound like a somewhat kind of operationally intense marketplace. So what is that like the org structure like, and maybe even specifically like your kind of roles and responsibilities and day to day.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, about 100. I think we're built with I'd say a good sales contingent with account executives focusing on enterprise and small businesses. We have business development representatives who are like integral for seeding restaurants, launching new markets. We have a very large engineering team and product team. As you can reference, we focus on supply chain, logistics, onboarding, and then we have a central like go to market team, a couple of us. So I think it's a real balance of what the priority is. Like myself, I lead like expansion and partnerships and ops. So it's a really balance from figuring out like which markets we want to launch, what products we want to push forward, how we want to incentivize the teams with the right products. So it's and then balancing that with different partnerships with delivery and integrations. So but I think like when you're building a business, it's just all about priority. And if it's solving a fire that's happening, or if it's trying to figure out how to strategize launching 10 markets by finding the right team members and the right sales pitch. It's really that balance. So the better you can prioritize, the more successful you can be.
Yeah, certainly get some head nods with agreeing here on that. So, yeah, so you did mention partnerships, which I actually wanted to get into in a little bit. So partnerships comes up in the community quite a bit with some of the marketplaces and some of the teams, but there isn't much that's shared on it. So I'd love to learn more about what your kind of your guys' philosophy or maybe approach with partnerships is, at Snackpass, and how you kind of evaluate them.
Definitely. So for us, like we're at the stage where we, from a brand standpoint, like we are building our own brand with users and restaurants where, users make Snackpass colored shoes that they wear. So like we have a affiliation. So from a partnership side, it's very like product focus that leads to revenue generation. So example is when we started Snackpass, we were takeout only. That was the only aspect of our business, which is, as you did your research, is the majority of the revenue. So that's the area we were excited to go after. But as we wanted to be that like full solution for restaurants, as we're referencing, like we needed to add other features. So, we added the kiosk for like instant orders, and a partnership we did is we partner with delivery providers that we outsource delivery. So if you're on the Snackpass app, you can actually still order delivery and it be delivered by players like an Uber or DoorDash who would do that fulfillment. So like from our standpoint, we don't want to build a gig economy platform because we're a restaurant business where, those businesses are delivery logistics businesses at their core. So we want to tap into other partners that's their focus. Another example is like integration partners. So we can work with companies like a Square and a Toast and like send orders. So there's like different aggregator platforms that we can send orders in between. So, or if it's like automation on how we upload like menus and our onboarding data tasks. So it's very like specific of how we can either streamline our business or, lead to like direct revenue generation is a balance.
Yeah. And then are most of those outbound, or are those kind of like inbound initiatives? So.
Yeah, I'd say it's a balance. We definitely get a lot of inbounds at this point, but when we were, 2 years ago, it was really just all outbound. No one had heard of us. So if we wanted to integrate with different like point of sale companies or delivery fulfillment companies, it was very much so outbound. But I think it's outbound like with leverage, I'd say. Like we're not coming at this and just signing an agreement. We will I'll negotiate very hard on ensuring like we are legally protected. We have good pricing depending on volume. So we still have leverage because, we're in hyper growth. We're Series B. We raised almost 100 million, but we're partnering with public companies out there that to them we're still small. So we have to show our value, especially a couple of years ago. Now a lot of different companies will inbound. But it's usually the ones that like we're constantly outreaching to are the ones that have high opportunity to drive revenue or immediately.
So like what is the day-to-day like for you? Because it sounds like you touch quite a bit across the business.
Yeah. So I lead expansion, partnerships, ops. We do have a marketing team that we oversee. That's there as well. But I think day to day is really like a balance of priorities. Whether some days there was a Square outage last week from Square standpoint. It was problem solving, calling restaurant owners to make sure they're okay, and then like some days it will be building our revenue forecasts and our board decks and our reports to connect with our board members, our investors, and our team of how we're looking to grow for Q2 and the rest of the year and the strategies that we could get there. So, and other days it's, negotiating with these different partners, possible deals that, can lead us to integrate with their system. So I think it's really a balance of being able to execute at the most granular level. Like everyone here is going down to call a restaurant to problem solve, but also like the highest level of thought and being extremely objective and thoughtful when making high level decisions on, from a people side of wanting to bring on like senior leaders to help on like the sales side or on HR side. So I think it's like a balance between like business, like people, and also on that very granular level of, still being as on the ground as possible.
Yeah, certainly. So, on the note is as far as being like on the ground as much as possible and, staying in touch with, some of your customers as far as like the restaurants. Is there anything that's like really worked well for you, or, that, or maybe even like tips for other, marketplace founders, as far as like really staying in tune and in touch with their customers?
Yeah, I think it's having a strategy for the point from sale to after sale, like, and who's managing that relationship. A lot of times when you're building from the ground, it's the person who sells is also managing that relationship. And that's how, Snackpass, that's what we were for many years. And now, we're selling at a much higher rate. Like, we're adding layers of like account management to be able to be these day-to-day contacts. But regardless on who's managing the relationships, like as personal as possible. So, we're on texting, phone call basis with basically all of them. Emails aren't really relevant in today's world in internal communication, and we kind of want to be on that same level with our partners. I think a big difference is like when these delivery businesses were starting, like unbelievably successful businesses, they were like listing restaurants on their site rather than building relationships with the restaurants. And it's no knock to that at all. But like, as we really want to be that like total solution for restaurants, we want to be that level of communication where we're their true partner. Like, we really want them to feel like we're partners. And if you're texting with someone or calling with someone, you're at a much different level than just receiving an email asking for like a change or an update.
Yeah, certainly. So cool. I feel like you and I could go on for quite some time, and we have some questions here. So we're just gonna go ahead and jump in a group Q&A if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, no, sounds great.
Awesome. Hey, Richard, do you want to come on?
Yeah, really enjoyed listening to you, Benjamin, and hearing the growth of Snackpass and the stories. So really glad that you shared that with us and had the time. I mean, blown away by your marketing team. I'd love to hear more. I mean, I'm a little perplexed. How you obviously got everything to work and you raised an astonishing Series A. But I mean, I'm just trying to envision how that process goes. I mean, you just sort of have a team that kind of wanders into restaurants with brochures and says, "Hey, can I talk to your manager?" Or do you like LinkedIn and try and schedule like meetings with the CEO or founder of the restaurant? Just that sort of nuts and bolts of getting people interested in even talking to you. So I guess that's the first one. And the second one, I'm still. You mentioned that data is the incentive for them, but maybe you could expand on that like a little more as well, like how that is a strong enough, hey, last month 800 people bought a milkshake from you. So it's a failure of my imagination here, but just trying to understand more about how you've turned that data into a compelling value proposition so that they would want to work with you and spend their time working with you.
Definitely. No, great questions. From like a restaurant acquisition standpoint, I think a lot of it has to do with our research ahead of time. Like, we're regardless of, team member, we're not just like calling on a list of restaurants based on a location like that. That would be a loss for us. So it's really understanding like what their ordering flow right now is, like their technology, what type of cuisine, how many like staff members are they short on staff, what their real estate layout. So we're highly targeted with how we partner with restaurants. So very, very quality based. And we're doing everything from calling, emailing, going in person, Instagram DMs, texting. Referrals are very huge. We want to pay our partners if they're going to be introducing us to more brands. That's a big one. And I think it's like trying to find restaurants who can hit certain like revenue thresholds from a quality standpoint rather than just like adding. So like if we believe a restaurant can hit a revenue threshold, like we really want to do everything we can to work with them. So I think that's been big. And we do a lot. We have like ops specialists in all of our new markets that'll go around and really like understand like the types of restaurants and how they could differ from different cities. and different flows, like what technology they're using, if they're using apps already, if they're using kiosks already, so we can really be tactful when we launch. So, and then user acquisition is less like the restaurants really help that acquisition for us with our in-store ordering, but like on the college markets, we do have ambassadors that help with referrals and sending discounts, sending points, running events. So it's a balance, but very restaurant focused. Yeah, and then the second question, yeah. So I think data is a big piece of it, and it's more than just like them understanding what been ordered. It's actually like about giving them, empowering them to like connect with the users themselves. So like that's something that they really have no ability to do, and we really like allow them to connect with the users, interact, like what promotions you want to run, what discounts, based on the data. So I think it's like taking data and like acting on it rather than it just being there, because you could give a restaurant owner like how many milkshakes someone bought, but that's just a number. Like what are you doing something with that? Are you going to order those 800 people ordered a milkshake 50% off if they order 3 milkshakes up front? So it's really like taking the data and turning it into incremental revenue. And then, the other big value adds are the social piece of connecting with their friends, and the organic marketing every user who orders at your store will do, because they'll broadcast it to their friends. And then the streamlining their operations in store, really making it feel like a digitized, like cash only system of simplicity with ordering ahead and in person. But great questions. Hopefully that answered them.
Yeah, that's a lot clearer. I really appreciate you expanding, and I understand that better. Thank you very much, Benjamin.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, those are great questions. Hey, Olivia, did you want to come on? You had a great question that you sent me.
Yeah. Hey, Benjamin. Thanks for the info. I'm on a team that is currently building a marketplace, and we're kind of exploring some different ideas that are congruent with some of the things you're sharing. I'm really specifically interested in the social piece of your app and kind of the duality of that. That's something that is always something we're thinking about, because we have, like you said, we're B2B to C as well. And so I'm curious the role that the social portion of your app has in acquiring new restaurant partners. Like, is that a big factor for them in terms of selling them? And then also from an end user perspective, is there some sort of function in the app that allows people who are ordering through Snackpass to actually share with people who are outside of the app? So an end user acquisition kind of method as well.
Definitely. No, great question. So I think like social for restaurants is a huge talking point, but it can really depend on like the type of restaurant. If like that'll be the main thing that attracts them to Snackpass. Like in China and Asia, like every restaurant you ordering ahead and you're playing a game on your phone before you're even ordering a restaurant. So Asian restaurants like boba tea, Chinese are immediately can get it because their users are already like the restaurants are already used to that type of flow. So I think it can really balance, but like the ability for a user to order your restaurant and then organically be incentivized to share that you order at that restaurant to all their friends is a win regardless. So whether a restaurant can like understand it in that explanation, or they can understand it as just incremental revenue that you're going to be getting by being on our platform. So I think like the end case is, yes, these users are interacting with their friends and they're organically marketing your brand, but that doesn't mean every restaurant will understand that type of explanation. So I think it's all about phrasing it the right way so they see, friends being a major avenue. We kind of think of like Instagram for food ordering, where like we don't really see ourselves as just a marketplace. We want these restaurants to feel like they have their own profile, their own page on our site where they can have as much custom tools as possible. So I think it's like a balance between like they have a presence on a social platform. And then on the user side, I mean, it's massive. I think the ability to send points and tell your network outside of the app is a major piece. I think you can do that within the app today, where you can like send points, send food to people outside of the app. And the referrals are huge as well. I think taking referral like away from like dollar figures is important too, where like no one really cares about like $10 or $20 or $50. Like it doesn't feel like tangible. But if you check out our platform, like our referrals are like burritos and like teas and coffees and sandwiches that are very tangible. Like if I gave you $10, you feel unsure what to do with that $10. But if I said you could have a burrito at your favorite burrito place, like you're using it tomorrow. So
yeah, you buy someone a coffee and it makes their day. You hand them $10 and they're like, cool, thanks.
Yeah. So I think it's making like referrals from something like intangible to tangible.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't, you've probably heard this before, and maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, but it reminds me a little bit of the Foursquare app. Did you remember that?
Yeah.
Anyone remember that? Like how you're kind of creating a community around a business. Obviously, like you want people to order from different businesses, but I think that like social piece and the social proof and then like the excitement being built around it harkens back. I'm sure they're long gone by now, but very cool stuff. Thank you.
No, definitely, for sure.
Those are great questions. Let's see. I was going to ask a question, but hey, Rebecca, did you want to come on? Because I see you raise your hand here.
Do you mind? I'm so sorry that I'm off camera. Thank you guys so much. This has been amazing. And I hope you don't mind if I bring you back to your Lime conversation from earlier and those days.
Sure.
We have a children's ride share. We launched in New Jersey 3 years ago, tested, scaled, etc. It was wildly popular. Hundreds on our wait list, and we have an amazing staff. We're sort of, building across the country now, operating in Texas and beginning our launch in a few other states. The Northeast, of course, where only like Uber and Lyft have TNC licenses and nobody at the MVC knows what a TNC is. And you're like, what on earth? Those states obviously are heavily regulated and more difficult to deal with. And I think that's something that a lot of marketplaces are encountering. And I'm just wondering, I've been going back and forth with these people for almost a year. We have Attorney General sign off now, but we're waiting for the MVC. What was the process like for you? In some of those, Massachusetts, New York, Jersey, Connecticut, et cetera, changing regulations, what were the best approaches that you found that work, even with these incredible user bases, still having to go through the red tape? What would you recommend for us?
Yeah, definitely. What I'd say is like the Northeast that's probably the toughest market to work with regulators. Like they were definitely like the later end of markets that Lime was able to launch because of the regulation. So I think it's really getting into the conversation like throughout, where we were meeting with the mayor of Hoboken. We were meeting with the governor of New Jersey. We were meeting with the police chief in Hoboken. We were meeting with the Port Authority. We were meeting with the MTA. So I think it's a lot of effort, but the ability to build all these relationships will just create more and more allies, where like just sending in a proposal and like waiting for an outcome is something that it can be really frustrating as we learn. So I think we moved to the model of how we could be as in depth with the community as possible for the ones making those decisions. And yeah, New Jersey, it's like Massachusetts, like the same type of scenario of
right.
When we launched there. So I think those are some key pieces, and like it's a lot of education as you can imagine for yourself as well of how the status quo is going to change, and for people to be open to that. So it's working with the right partners like in government and local. We work with like Bike Hoboken and like Bike Jersey City, these community advocacy groups that were extremely impactful with local government. So I think it's like balancing who those influencers are, both in government and outside of government, to really push the needle.
Thank you so much. If you guys can hear me, thank you.
Awesome. Hey Ben, I actually had a question someone sent me. So they were asking about you mentioned the kiosk, right? And that sounds like a pretty big bet, that you guys took as far as launching that, kind of like hardware or like, offline component. So could you maybe share, about like what went in to making that decision to launch that?
So I think initially with COVID, we were a business that was prone to struggle. We were on college campuses. We were partnering with restaurants, and you had to order ahead. So the reality is there was no students, there's no restaurants. So we had to figure out like how we could support restaurants in them generating revenue. So we built these new products with the QR code online ordering. The self-service kiosk was initially like, how could we allow people to order in person without having to interact with someone? Because we really wanted to like build contactless products. So we were installing these kiosks all around the country because these restaurants wanted to be able to accept orders in person with people walking by, and they could scan the QR code, but they wanted to be able to like really browse on a kiosk. So that was a huge win for these restaurants. And then what we learned is the staffing is a huge struggle for restaurants right now, and the kiosk like helps them not have to hire as many people. But what it also does, it still allows the interaction between like the staff and the consumer. It just allows the flow, so someone doesn't have to be making a coffee and taking an order. So it streamlines their operations completely. So we really wanted to double down on how we could try to help these restaurants with all their in-store orders and help them streamline their operations and really understand the data of who's coming into their restaurant. And the kiosk really helps with that. So it definitely a big bet, but it's certainly allowed us to go from just being an add-on product for these restaurants where we're 20 to 50% of their revenue to really being like 100%. So it's really like transformed our ability to like work with restaurants and be way more a part of their like heartbeat.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible to hear. So, I mean, at this point, is it more like this is something that you're like selectively rolling out to certain like locations or restaurants, or I mean, I guess like how do you think about where you introduce the kiosks, and is it like an inbound kind of request thing and you're like betting, or?
Yeah, so I think like the core, we're like a social platform, like regardless of product. So we really like our app is what's going to drive incremental orders. If we get people on our app, they're sharing their orders with their friends, they're ordering more, which is a fact. So I think like having the kiosk a part of every restaurant is super just beneficial for the restaurant to streamline their operations, grab that data, and allow those users to be on our app and platform. So I think like going after restaurants that are all in on Snackpass and understand the value of the social piece and they're streamlining their in-store operations is a balance that we want to it's finding the right restaurant. So it's definitely, as they're referencing, like figuring out what tech they're using, like what their operational flow is, what type of food they're ordering is integral to finding like the quality restaurants that are down for all of our products.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So, what does the future look like for a Snackpass and maybe like a restaurant that uses Snackpass?
Yeah. So for Snackpass, I mean, we're like the only social e-commerce platform in the country. As I mentioned, there's, Pinduoduo and some amazing companies out in China, but we, the restaurant business is over $1 trillion. That is for sure. So there's a lot left to go on the restaurant side. Infinite, but I think social commerce is something that can go beyond just restaurants. So like, there's many other factors, whether it's like direct to consumer brands, like retail, grocery. I think there's many different areas that incentivizing what you're buying to your friends can only help the merchant. So it doesn't stop at restaurants, but restaurants is something that people interact with many times a day. There's no end user from a B2B standpoint that does more volume or frequency than a restaurant. So that's the biggest opportunity. But as we solve that, we'll constantly be experimenting beyond, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely great, and it's such a huge opportunity for sure. So. Well, cool. Well, I think that's all the questions. So yeah, I think we're good on the questions. So this is a really great chat. So I definitely appreciate taking the time to join us and sharing all of your awesome experience and insights with us here today. Last kind of question that I actually had for you though was, if you were to go back to right before you joined Lime and maybe even like before Snackpass, what would you tell yourself as far as about marketplaces?
Yeah, I tell myself that don't be afraid of complexity. I think like when you're building, you want to simplify like everything internally, which is great. But as you build and build, it's just going to get more complex. You're going to be in more markets. You're going to have more products. So I think like the mindset of trying to always simplify the complexity is huge and not be afraid of it. So I think that's a big piece I learned. I think like moving uncomfortably fast is something that is just pivotal when building. I think of an example of like if you're thinking of something you have to do to solve a problem and you're waiting to tomorrow, like you're not in the mentality to build $1 billion business. Like you have to just do it right then because that's what it takes. So I think like just moving uncomfortably fast, being objective, not being afraid of complexity are some pieces.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's definitely a great way to wrap things up, and it's somewhat comforting to hear, not to be afraid of the complexity from someone coming like you.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, yeah. Last but not least, time for a quick plug. Where can we keep up with you at?
yeah, definitely. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter, Br Rubenstein, or shoot me. I'll send my email in the channel, so feel free to follow up with me as well. But yeah, down to connect, and thanks so much for having me, Mike. This has been super awesome.
Yeah, this was a really fun chat. So thanks again for taking the time to join us here today. And we're of course big fans of what you're building. And yeah, thanks everyone for the great questions today.